Hello, children. I hope you're all doing well. For our revision today, let us take up Unit 3.1, a poem titled Night of the Scorpion, written by Nissim Ezekiel. Let us read each stanza and then understand what the poet is trying to say. Night of the Scorpion. I remember the night my mother was stung by a scorpion. 10 hours of steady rain had driven him to crawl beneath a sack of rice. Parting with his poison, flash of diabolic tail in the dark room, he risked the rain again. The poet writes this autobiographical poem in memory of the night when his mother was stung by a scorpion. He narrates his personal experience. The terrible incident, which has etched itself in the poet's memory, took place in a village. It had been raining for 10 hours, and to escape the rain, the scorpion had crawled beneath a sack of rice. It had stung the poet's mother, and after parting with the poison in the dark room, had gone back into the rain with a devilish flash of its tail. We find that the scorpion shows contrasting characteristics. It seems scared and therefore hides beneath the sack. But it is also dangerous with an evil, poisonous sting. The peasants came like swarms of flies and buzzed the name of God 100 times to paralyze the evil one. With candles and with lanterns, throwing giant scorpion shadows on the mud baked walls, they searched for him. He was not found. They clicked their tongues. With every movement that the scorpion made, his poison moved in mother's blood, they said. So, on hearing the news, the villagers had come to express their sympathy like swarms of flies in huge numbers. They continuously chanted or buzzed the name of God, sounding like a swarm of insects, in order to paralyze or stop the activity of the evil scorpion. They searched for the scorpion with candles and lanterns, believing superstitiously that the scorpion is an evil creature and they desired to kill it. Their candles and lanterns cast huge shadows on the wall, and in their desperate search for the scorpion, they mistook every moving shadow as a moving scorpion. When they could not find the scorpion, they clicked their tongues to show their frustration and their hopelessness. They hoped that the scorpion would sit still, as they believed that its movement caused the poison to spread in the victim's body. The poet recollects the prayers that were being chanted by the villagers. May he sit still, they said. May the sins of your previous birth be burned away tonight, they said. May your suffering decrease the misfortunes of your next birth, they said. May the sum of all evil, balanced in this unreal world against the sum of good, become diminished by your pain. May the poison purify your flesh of desire and your spirit of ambition, they said. And they sat around on the floor with my mother in the center, the peace of understanding on each face. The villagers prayed for the poet's mother as she lay in agony. They believed that her suffering was a result of the sins of her previous birth, and the pain that she was experiencing would ease the misfortunes or bad luck of her next birth. They were quite sure that the poet's mother would die. They hoped that her good deeds may be counted more than her bad deeds and reduce or diminish her pain. They prayed that the pain would purify her spirit and cleanse her sins. They seemed to accept and understand that a sad fate awaited the poet's mother and her family. More candles, more lanterns, more neighbors, more insects, and the endless rain. My mother twisted through and through, groaning on a mat. My father, skeptic, rationalist, trying every curse and blessing, powder, mixture, herb, and hybrid. He even poured a little paraffin upon the bitten toe and put a match to it. As the night progressed, more and more people gathered at the poet's house. They found the poet's mother twisting and groaning in pain. The poet's father, who was by nature a skeptic and a rational man, did not just pray and hope like the other villagers. The poet's father was somebody who did not easily believe in superstitions. He was a logical and rational man. But when he saw that the wife's pain would not ease, he began to try different herbs, different mixtures, and eventually, in his panic and haste, he poured a little paraffin or wax on the wife's toe and even set it on fire to burn the poison. I watched the flame feeding on my mother. I watched the holy man perform his rites to tame the poison with an incantation. After 20 hours, it lost its sting. As the poet watched in terror the flames that were consuming his mother's flesh, a holy man also came along and performed some rituals and chanted some mantras to lessen the effect of the poison. We see here that for the major part of the poem, the scorpion appears to be the winner or the victor in the battle of life and death. However, the poet's mother found relief after 20 long hours of suffering. The poet concludes his poem on a positive note, revealing the heart of his mother. My mother only said, "Thank God, the scorpion picked on me and spared my children." She thanked God that the scorpion had not bitten her children and had stung her instead. Her selfless and unconditional love for her children is revealed through these closing lines. Students, the poem is a very simple narration, but it is enriched with a number of poetic devices. Let us take a look at the poetic devices of this poem, beginning with metaphor. A metaphor is an indirect comparison made between different ideas or objects for poetic effect. We have a couple of examples. Flash of diabolic tail in the dark room. Here, the sudden movement of the scorpion's tail is indirectly compared to a flash of light. And the next example, to paralyze the evil one. Here, the scorpion is indirectly compared to the evil one, who is the devil himself. Students, you can mark these poetic devices in your textbook as we go along. Next, we have transferred epithet. An adjective or an epithet is transferred from one noun to another for poetic effect. We see this in the line, flash of diabolic tale. Here, the adjective or epithet diabolic is transferred from the poison to the tail of the scorpion. Next, we have the simple poetic device alliteration, in which a sound is repeated for poetic effect. There are many lines where the poet uses alliteration. Let's take a look. He risked the rain again. The r sound is repeated here. Moved in mother's blood. M sound is repeated. May the poison purify your flesh. The p sound is repeated. Powder mixture, herb and hybrid. H sound is repeated. He even poured a little paraffin upon the bitten toe. Once more, the p sound is repeated. And finally, I watched the flame feeding on my mother. The f sound is repeated here for poetic effect. Simile comes next. A direct comparison is made between objects and ideas for poetic effects. The peasants came like swarms of flies. A direct comparison is made between the peasants or villagers and swarms of flies. Next, we have onomatopoeia, in which a word whose sound suggests its meaning is used for poetic effect. The lines are, and buzzed the name of God 100 times. They clicked their tongues again, groaning on a mat. Next, we have hyperbole. An exaggeration is made for poetic effect. Look at the line, and buzzed the name of God 100 times. The line is exaggerated for poetic effect. Next, we have another poetic device, antithesis, that you're all familiar with. Words with opposite meanings are used together for poetic effect. They searched for him, he was not found. May the sum of all evil balanced in this unreal world against the sum of good become diminished by your pain. Evil and good are opposite words. And finally, trying every curse and blessing. Curse and blessing are opposite words used in the same line for poetic effect. Next, we have repetition, and as you know, words and phrases are repeated for poetic effect in this poetic device. The entire stanza has many examples of repetition. As you can see, the word may is repeated several times. May he sit still. May the sins of your previous birth be burned away tonight. May your suffering decrease. May the sum of all evil balanced in this unreal world. May the poison purify your flesh. And along with that, there is also the phrase they said, which is repeated over and over. We have some more examples of repetition. More candles, more lanterns, more neighbors, more insects. And my mother twisted through and through. We have here an interesting poetic device, climax. Words are arranged in an increasing order of importance for poetic effect. The first example is more candles, more lanterns, more neighbors, and more insects. And the second example, my father, skeptic, rationalist, trying every curse and blessing, powder, mixture, herb, and hybrid. We see a picture of a father who is desperate to save the life of his wife, and he's trying everything one after the other. Let's look at the poetic device tautology next. Here, words with similar meanings are used together for poetic effect. May the poison purify your flesh of desire and your spirit of ambition. The words desire and ambition have the same meaning. My father, skeptic, rationalist. Once again, the words skeptic and rationalist are very close in meaning. They are used together in the same sentence here. The next poetic device is personification. A human quality is given to an inanimate thing for poetic effect. Example, I watched the flame feeding on my mother. Here, the flame has been given the human quality of feeding on something or of consuming or eating something. The poet uses many examples of imagery to help us create a mental picture that appeals to our senses. He uses visual imagery of a scorpion crawling beneath a sack of rice and peasants coming like a swarm of flies. He uses the tactile or touch imagery of the flame feeding on the mother's toe, the father pouring the paraffin or the wax on his wife's toe. He also uses sound imagery where the peasants are buzzing the name of God or clicking their tongues. And he uses emotions. There is fear and there is pain as well. So students, with this we come to the end of the lesson. Please open the PDF document given below. You will find the notes for this lesson in that document. Please go through those notes. Thank you.